Okay, hi, it's Ombre, the Winslodge Prefect at the Grey School of Wizardry, and today I thought we'd try something new. This is based on a working that I sort of invented, and I invented it because a friend of mine asked could I do something to help her in her job search. So yeah, I put together all these different elements, writing out a petition on parchment paper, putting together a bunch of incantations, candles with the proper color correspondences, adding some herbs that had the right correspondences. And something pretty amazing, when I got the thing going, I had a bunch of candles in the cauldron, and once the candles burnt down to where the wax was even, the whole thing whoosh, it was pretty neat looking. But when you talk about results, you never know if these things are coincidences or not. She wound up being offered a job that paid 3 times more than the one she was applying for, and for some reason she didn't take it. But so what I thought is, I was going to demonstrate this anyway, just because I thought it was pretty neat. But I was thinking just in terms of creativity and trying to modify your magic, modify what you know, everything you're learning through this school, everything you're learning through your studies outside of school. How can you improvise that and come up with kind of this syncretic spell based on what you have on hand? Cats have magical significance, don't they? This is a neighbor's cat. I have 3 of my own, but just go with it. Conferring her blessings. So yeah, working with what you have on hand, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go. So where do we start with this? Well, what is my intention? I think right now a big concern people have on their mind is protection from illness, maintaining health. So one of the things that we think about when we're conducting a spell is magical timing. And that's things like the phase of the moon, the time of day, the day of week, the hour of the day. It can get really specific. And if you want to know more about magical timing, if you are a level 1 apprentice or higher, our Introduction to Magical Practice class does talk a little bit about magical timing. So if you're new to magic, you're not really familiar with that, that's one place to start. You could also Google it, jump right in. So right now we have a waning moon, and being a waning moon is better for spells of decrease, that you're trying to get rid of something rather than bring something to you. Now the health spell that I developed, I don't know if this is necessarily like bringing health is totally suited for this phase of the moon, but definitely banishing illness is. But I want to demonstrate both spells, and as far as magical timing, I want to add something in there. It's great when you can get all of the elements of your spell correct. That is the best, but sometimes you're not going to be able to do that, and you're going to have to improvise, and you're going to have to say, well, there is this feeling that depending on what sign the moon is in the sign of the moon, it changes every 2.5 days, is like if whatever body part that sign is ruling, at the time the moon is in it, it's weakened, so you don't want to have surgery. Well, if you need open heart surgery like immediately and it's on the wrong day, go with science. It's still your best bet to do what you can. Well, let's get right into it. So I'm going to bring you 2 versions of the spell. Did I mention that we're going to do 2 versions?
No.
I'm trying to talk fast because we got a lot of information to go through here. Because we're going to do this twice. But the first version is one for, protection. It's for protection. Protecting your health is, pretty easy. And what I want to specify here too is, we all want to save the world. We all want to do the big spell that's going to, eradicate this, save the entire world. Magic actually works better if you can be very specific, and a lot of us, if we tried to put that kind of energy out, I'm going to save the world, it would probably darn near kill us. It's probably not going to work. But it's like, with any other you know, people who work in the emergency professions and the medical professions. You save one victim, one patient at a time, and that matters all the world to that person. So you do what you can. So yeah, I said we'll get started. We'll get started. So let's see, where did I start with this? So we come up with a magical intention, and you want to state it very positive language, like this is the case, not I hope for, I wish for. You know, you put the target's name, maybe it's yourself. So and so is healthy. So and so remains healthy. Will, you know, very clear, specific language, as specific as you can get it is preferable. And I prefer, and you know, use whatever you have on hand. You might not have everything that I'm talking about on hand. And this is one thing, if you get into the study of like folk magic, which is what I'm interested in, is, you know, the people who practice folk magic, they're generally marginalized people who live in poverty, and they use what they have on hand. You know, they might use what they have in their own backyards, and guess what? That's a very good skill to learn right now. What's in your backyard? Because you might not be going out. You might not have the money, depending on what your employment situation is, to go buy fancy stuff. Fancy stuff might not even be available. You know, so there's a lot of limitations right now. I think, I should double check on this. So I think this is the journal I had for, I think it was Green Magic. We had to, like, for a month or whatever, record just what was in our backyard. I'm like, this is so cute. It's from 2010. And it's, you know, and it's like I took these pictures, and you can tell it's like 10 years ago because the quality of the printer's like so bad. But it's documenting everything that's in my backyard. That's a really good skill to have. If you're not familiar, now is the perfect time to do that. If you're not at school, if you're not at work, if you can't go any place, as long as you're not on lockdown, your backyard is free to you. So yeah, what I typically use when I'm writing out my intention is I use a fountain pen. You might not have one available, but if you do, that's what I prefer. If you have different colors of ink, you can use those. I just use black. It's what I had. And for me, my fountain pen, it tends to dry up, and it's hard to get going, and it helps if I put the tip in, if I dip it in water, it helps keep it moist, and it writes better. So I was using like holy water, and there's different kinds of holy water you can use. This is another thing you can Google. I have holy water that came from Lourdes. Obviously, that's not something that everybody has on hand. But you know, do some research. You know, it's rainwater, water from a stream. There's a lot of versions. It can be just water that you've prayed over. If you've got it from a font at a church, right now all the churches are closed, and I don't think they have the water for everyone to be dipping their hands in anyway. But this is, again, use what you have on hand. What is holy to you? The rainwater, is that holy to you? So yeah, so I use that, so that's right in my intention. You write your intention out 3 times. 3 times is important. That's an important magical number. Sign your name to it. By my will, so mote it be, your name, 3 times. And this is where Vienna asks the question, why 3 times?
Why 3 times?
3 times is a magical number. And this is if you're interested in this, you know, we have the Department of Mathemagicks to learn about, you know, the magic of numbers. It's a very sacred number with significance in different religions. A lot of divinities are 3-part, like with Christianity, Father, Son, Holy Ghost. I think in Hinduism is it Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu? I think those are the 3. I'll have to double check on that. But that's just a very common theme. You know, 3 is the number of the nuclear family, mother, father, child. So 3 is an important number. So the other thing too that I got to think, if you have what's called a personal concern of a person that you're making this intention for, like if you have a hair or you know, anything that was connected to them. We think of like contagion magic. Anything that has had contact with something else retains that contact. So like a hair from their head retains that contact with them. And the concept also of sympathetic magic, and I touched upon this a little bit with Yang video, and I don't know if I did a particularly good job, but you know, things that carry the symbolic, significance of what you're trying to work with, maintain that power. So if you write the person's name or you have a picture of them, you're trying to represent on a smaller level, on a microcosmic level, what you're trying to happen on a larger level. And going back to the egg cleansing that I mentioned in my earlier video, is we are at a time of shortage. If you run out of eggs, what are you going to do if you run out of eggs? Well, do you have something that can stand in for an egg? Do you have a plastic egg from like used for a holiday that you put candy in? Do you have clay? Play-Doh? Can you form an egg, and put your energy and your intention into making it do what you need it to do? And my daughter is sitting behind the iPad rolling her eyes. So, and you use that, and you go through all, the motions that you would normally go through for that. So intention and will are really big. Improvisation in times of shortage is, it counts. Everything, I'm going to talk a little bit about using candles and candle magic. They always say, use a whole candle, don't use a candle stub. What if all you have is a candle stub? That is in itself a sacrifice. If you put, forth the whole intention of dressing that candle and, maybe carving your intention into it, it is better than nothing. Anything is better than nothing. Learn about what's in your backyard. If you don't have, say, saffron to put in a healing spell, not many people can afford saffron, find out what you have around you. So let's get into it.
Finally.
Well, I already got into the writing the petition out. I know I'm going to forget stuff because there's a lot involved that goes on with this. So candles, candles, different color candles just different colors have different connotations, and different traditions will, ascribe different, intentions that you can use these for. So, according to Wikipedia, they said red is associated with strength and health. Now, in the Grey School, in our color magic class, which I believe is level 2, Department of Magical Practice, it's also strength, vitality, life force. That is all very good things that we need right now. One thing I didn't use is not specific to this spell on Wikipedia, mentioned orange for feelings of depression and feelings of abandonment. And I think right now a lot of people are feeling pretty lonely. If you want to incorporate that into a particular kind of intention. Again, trying to talk really fast here. So green can be used for general healing. It's also associated with immortality. Blue, which I also have in here, healing. Now, here we talk about improvisation. I did not have bright green candles, so I'm going to have to use these kind of turquoise, bluish green. But blue also associated with healing, so halfway between, I think I'm okay with that. So, green, another thing, according to Wikipedia, green is associated with the lungs and the respiratory system. And here we are putting my daughter's raising her hand, yes?
Are you saying Wikipedia or Wikipedia?
Wikipedia. Did I say Wikipedia?
No.
It's Wikipedia. It really is. It's a site.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. She's not impressed. Oh my gosh. So one of the things is I bundle them together because, having a bunch of them together, we're going to make a really big flame here. It's, I use, you can use whatever string you might have on hand. You might just be limited to whatever you have. But, again, different colors have different associations in a lot of folk traditions, and it's really, really across a lot of cultures. Red string confers protection. So that's what I have. So here's what we're going to do with that. So now that we have our intention, I have my personal concern in there for people that I am doing this for. And
who are you doing this for?
For myself. I'm only doing it for people that I have permission. That's always good, important to get their permission. And name them by name specifically. So then I take just a plain white candle here. And you could do this with candle wax. You can also do this with sealing wax. But I think this is the cheaper way. So we're going to melt some wax in the bottom of our cauldron. So yeah, I did mention I use a cast iron cauldron. I think that's perfect for this. You might again have to improvise if you don't have a cauldron. You know, something that is relatively not relatively, that's fireproof, because this is going to get really hot. That you can do this in. If we get enough wax going here, I don't know if I got enough yet. So we're going to hold this in here for a little bit until it hardens enough. Oh, you know what I didn't talk about is dressing the candles. So I dressed all of these with olive oil. And what you want to do with that is, if you have a particular prayer from whatever tradition you practice, whatever tradition you're comfortable with, you know, recite that as you are dressing these. Oh, and I also, you know, did I mention, because of the whole magic of 3, I have 3 red candles, 3 blue candles, 3 green candles, so we have 3 times 3. Now the prayer that I used, it's from the Bible. It's a psalm. Now I know not all of you out there are Christian. You don't have to be Christian to use this, but if you're not comfortable using it, by all means use something powerful that, you know, that has meaning for you in your own tradition. What I used for this was Psalm 23, the one that goes, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." You may know it is the one that goes, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death." That one. Very convenient that has 6 verses. So 6, you know, 6 divided by 3 is 2. So when I was doing my candles in my groups of 3, you know, recite 2 verses as I'm anointing each one, you know, worked out perfectly. So I was able to put a lot of intentionality into doing that. I've used that psalm so many times, it's like you almost don't even have to read it, you know, just kind of focus on putting that intentionality in there. So let's light her up.
Finally.
Another thing too is, like, we're doing this outside. I've done this indoors. You know, if you get a lot of smoke going, can set off your smoke alarms. The other thing too, because I'm going to add some herbs to this. One isn't lit, but when this gets down far enough, it will get lit. I guarantee you. You know, be mindful, be respectful of the other people in your house. If you're burning herbs, they might be really irritated about it. I have one of my kids has sensory issues. She would be freaking out if I were doing it in the house. And you also want to make sure that the herbs you're using, you know, don't have any, you know, toxic properties. And you know, if you have to do it in the house, and we might get to that point that you can't leave your house, you know, do it in front of an open window, but do be mindful, respectful of the people around you and safety issues. So I'm going to add some herbs to this and tell you why I'm using them. These correspondences I got out of the now defunct site of the Magical Cat, which is just really hate to lose that resource, because I got so much great information, you know, from that site. So I'm going to add some coriander. Coriander is associated with health, immortality, and protection. And you go, okay, do we really expect we're going to become immortal? I don't know about that, but if we, you know, we are trying to avoid death right now. So, kind of a thing right now. Phenols. Phenols associated with strength, vitality, healing, purification. One thing I thought was, you know, pretty important right now, help and strength when facing dire times. And it increases the length of one's incarnation. So maybe a little bit more realistic than immortality. We do want to lengthen the time of our incarnation. It's got a sprinkler, but these seeds are too big, I think, to sprinkle out very well. So put some of them in there. So these all just kind of, I have my own spice rack that I use down in my magical space. You know, and that's, I found like these empty spice racks like at consignment sales. So, you know, always be on the lookout for things that you can use creatively in your magical practice. What else do I want to use here? I have rue. Rue helps to prevent illness, speed recovery. And this is something that needs to be used carefully too. It is you know, I've read that you can add it to baths, but for a lot of people it's a skin irritant. So, well, anything can be. You know, you can be allergic to anything. It's also, cats hate it. If you have cats, don't burn that in the house. Also going to add some High John powder. I use High John root for a lot of things, and unfortunately High John is not cheap, but I do have High John powder. I'm going to add, this just heats up the intensity of the spell itself, so I'm going to add some of that. Try to keep it away from the fire here. And also, along the same lines, I'm going to add some dragon's blood.
Dragon's blood?
Dragon's blood, yep.
Like, actual dragon's blood?
Yeah, blood from actual dragons.
Like, actually, though?
Where, have you seen any dragons recently?
I don't know. Your thing's
Maybe,
magic.
I don't know, maybe.
Your thing's magic. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a fair question. So yes, we got all that. So I want to go back, talking about the High John powder and High John root. It is kind of expensive, but what it is used for as far as heating the spell up, you can do this with cheaper ingredients. You can do it with cinnamon, you can do it with arrowroot, you can do it with ginger if you have any of those types of things on hand. So again, find out what you have in your backyard. One of the great things about living in the times we're living in now is that we have access to the internet. You can research the magical properties of everything you find. You can even, find, if you go, I don't know what this plant is. Go online, look for pictures, or just, ask friends. Any of my friends out there familiar with herbology or gardening, can you tell me what this is? So it's great that we have that mode of communication, especially in these times when, we're shut in and we're cut off from other people. So talking about resources it's like candles, acquiring a lot of candles, for, different colors for different intentions, that isn't cheap. Now do I have an example of one? I do have an example one because I'm going to use this later. Like, you can get the candles that are like this size from a lot of pagan supply stores. It's a reasonable likelihood that you might not live near one of those, and right now they'd probably be closed anyway. If they're not closed, they probably should be. You can order stuff online, but again, I've heard Amazon's going to be, only selling stuff that is, necessary right now, and we understand that. It's like, these are dire times. We have to, make rules that will keep us safe. But, in better times, when you can, I buy Hanukkah candles at Hanukkah. This is a way that you can get, it spells out, a lot of, pick them up, a lot of different colors for relatively cheaply. And, of course, with these skinny type of candles, they're really designed, to fit most menorahs, which have like a really, really small hole. But this is where I do the whole thing with, put the white colored wax, wherever you're going to stick the candle. You don't necessarily have to have a candle holder that is the right size. And the other thing too, I just thought these were neat. I just found, it can be harder to come across gold and silver candles. I found these birthday candles like in a baking store. This, again, you might not be able to find those like now, but eventually when all the stores open up again, if you don't have a pagan store near you, but you have a baking supplies store, gold and silver candles. This does get really hot. Make sure you have anything flammable away from it. And absolutely do not touch the cauldron when it gets to this point. It is super hot. It's no longer a candle flame. It's a fire in a cauldron. So we are back again. I have my petition on my parchment. It can be something as when you're doing a banishing, and we are in a waning moon, so right to a month for it. Things like COVID-19, I banish and bind you from affecting you, family member. We talk about like helping others. It could be somebody who's asked you for help, somebody who is high risk, somebody who has pre-existing health conditions, somebody who's already sick, someone elderly. So you could do this for anyone. This time I'm using 5 candles, and the reason for that is I looked up, the significance of different numbers. So yeah, one of the symbolisms of the number 5 I found is it's the number of divine grace. We are kind of asking by the grace of deity. I'm calling on the Judeo-Christian God. Whoever you call on might be different. You know, in terms of like numbers, and even, you know, I was talking about the properties of different herbs before, you will find, if you research this, that different systems have, you know, different correspondences. I've been reading a lot of different like folk magic books lately, and, you know, some of the ones that I read, they give different properties than some of the other sites that, you know, where I found information. I mentioned I use the Magical Cat site. The reason for that is I've used it in the past and I've always had good results. So that is not saying that what you use is any better or worse. You know, can two things be simultaneously true? I remember my philosophy professor used to give the example of penicillin. For one person with a bacterial infection, it's a cure. For another person, they die of anaphylaxis. So there is, you know, you have to see what personally works for you. And if you're like staying totally within a tradition, I would say try to adhere to that as much as possible. Because, you know, if you haven't taken, I think it's the Spellcraft class, that you talk about the significance of morphic resonance. And it's this idea that the universe has a memory. And the more of this, you know, the same intention we put into the same actions, to the same words, those words, those actions, they gain power just from, you know, being repeated. So, colors. This time I chose black for banishing and white for purification. Another thing I did differently this time is, well, I did the same thing with the intention, writing the intention with the fountain pen. I'm just going to get this lit up while we wait. Doing the intention with the fountain pen on the parchment. But I also, this time, I carved my intention into the candles. And I know these are kind of skinny candles, but, you know, if you use you can use a needle, a pin. If you get those, like, really, really skinny lancets for diabetes, you can write a heck of a lot on a candle. What am I going to put in this one? Well, in the egg video, I talked about turmeric, and turmeric, it has not just a magical quality, but an actual physical quality of it. It reduces inflammation, so it has a drawing out. And we are trying to, if you know, for you, if you're doing this intention, like to expel a virus, and if it's a specific virus, name, you know, your magic is more powerful, the more specific you can get it. Name it. If it's COVID-19, you know, it's that. If you have, like, we had recently a pertussis outbreak at the high school. If it's pertussis, it's that. So, you know, but, you know, even, you know, when I did the health one before, if it's just general good health, that's fine too. But if it's something specific, name the specific thing. We're trying to draw it out. We're going to add some of that turmeric. And this is, again, regardless of whether anyone thinks it's a magical property or not, if that's an actual physical trait of it, you know, just by virtue of that sympathetic magic, you know, using it symbolically in that way, it has power. Also going to add some hot foot powder. Now this is like traditionally used like to drive an enemy away, like you put it in their shoe and they would never be returning to your house again. Hot foot powder it's generally, it contains different kinds of pepper. And this is another thing you want to, if you're going to burn this, you know, burn it outside. Pepper can be a real irritant. So I add a little bit of that. But, you know, this time I'm not using it to drive away people. You know, so again, get creative. If you're going to name the disease, you're going to name the illness, you're banishing it from your life, banishing it from a specific person's life. There's a tunnel that goes, it's a little river that goes under a bridge, and the river is mostly dried up, but I felt called to go in there, and I didn't know why. And it felt like a spiritual journey into the underworld. So I went in there, and there was some standing water, just because the river was no longer rushing through it. And I felt like I needed to take that standing water. Well, and I got back, and I'm reading about these books I read about different folk magic traditions, and the power of different kinds of water. Well, standing water is particularly powerful for banishing. And, you know, it got me thinking again in that sympathetic magic sense, if if you think of like floodwaters, there's like filthy, dirty, disgusting, and so if you combined, in my mind, you take both the banishing aspect of it and the fact that it is this dirty, disgusting, germy thing that you're trying to get rid of. I want to banish that germy, disgusting thing that I want to get rid of. And this is also, getting into the whole idea of being creative with what you have around your house. One of the things that I found while studying this stuff is, there are a lot of traditions, like in Appalachia, about how you would use the nest of a dirt dauber. I don't know that we have any of those around here. If we do, I haven't seen any. We do have other types of wasps. And to me, when I think of wasps, I think like angry, they're gonna make you run away. So I was looking at that Wikipedia site, Wikipedia Vienna, not Wikipedia, and we're talking about them being associated with feminine energies and being very protective of your family. So if you want this protective horde of wasps to go after, what you're afraid of, sending that horde of wasps against this virus. I didn't talk about, before I gave you a psalm that you could possibly use, and if you're not comfortable using psalms, don't use them, but I am comfortable using them. For this one, I came across somebody on Facebook, a friend of mine, had posted part of the 91st psalm, and it was actually not the part I'm going to share with you, but I thought it was interesting, so I went and I looked up the whole thing, and it read like something that would be very good for this type of work. And the part that I really like, there's two verses of it, verses 5 and 6. You will not fear the terror of night, nor the arrow that flies by day, nor the pestilence that stalks in the darkness, nor the plague that destroys at midday. And that felt appropriate to me, not just for the subject matter, but also the fact that it rhymes. If you go, is there significance to the fact that it rhymes? And yeah, there actually is. That doesn't mean that all of your incantations, all of your prayers do have to rhyme. But it's again, this sort of mental kind of significance of it. So I don't know that I would say necessarily that it's important to rhyme, but it adds a certain amount of power. Just when you think about just even how, we think almost even in a stereotypical sense, of witches, like, reciting these really rhymey incantations. If that puts you in the mood, if that draws you mentally into your intentionality, that rhyming sense, use that. That words have power. So we're getting to the point where this one's starting to catch and starting to crackle. And try to think of some other things I want to share with you about this. Ooh, listen, guys, this one's really boiling in there. I'm reading about all these different folk traditions, and the question always comes up, like I think fair enough, about cultural appropriation. And I don't want anybody to go out there pretend to be something you're not. But one of the themes that I come across repeatedly in all these books is that these traditions come out, for one thing, a sense of need. And, anyone can have a sense of need, but I think particularly in the times we're facing now, resources can be extremely limited. But also getting to know your land. A lot of these things were specific and tied to where the people lived and the situation surrounding their society. And now I think a lot of us, especially here in the United States, but like with myself, I'm of Irish descent primarily, but you have to go back 6 generations to get my family back to Ireland. I really have, other than in my DNA, I have no connection to Ireland. I am not even native to where I live now. So, you're trying to, start a relationship, both with the spirits of your land, also with your ancestors. Talk to your own ancestors. I have an ancestor altar. I work with mine. And it's one of the rationale behind, like, using Christian prayers is, even if I'm a little bit estranged from Christianity myself, I was raised Catholic, and, my whole extended family is Christian, but the ancestors, they like to hear the prayers that they said, and again, also with the morphic resonance, using these psalms. These psalms have been repeated, like, for thousands of years. So you're adding your voice to all those other people who are in times of trouble asking for help. So, you know, it's up to you to decide what you feel comfortable doing. And what I'm getting from all of these resources is that it's about, like, you know, it's not claiming someone else's tradition. It's about starting your own. You know, what is going to work for you? You know, again, talking about the different correspondences. I know in the Grey School, the candle magic class, when it gives the color correspondences, the professor who wrote the class, I think that's Professor Sapphire Soleil, who's one of our early professors. I actually had her. That's how long I've been with this school, quite a while. You know, she actually says on the lesson, these are my personal correspondences. These are like the things that I found that work. So you are going to, at some point, you know, certainly learn from the wisdom of other people who have trod the path before you, but you're also going to work with it yourself and come up with, you know, what works for you. And this is why you keep a magical journal and you write down everything you did and did it work or didn't it work. So, I don't know. Do you have any questions, Deanna?
Does it work?
Does it work? Well, you know, there's like no way to prove it. Yeah. But this is, again, where, you know, you write down, you should be keeping a journal, writing down things that happen to you every day, because, you know, you'll get an idea, like a sense of what's normal and what's not normal. So I mentioned previously, I did this for a friend who was looking for a job, and then she got offered a job 3 times more, you know, making 3 times more money than the one she applied for. I've also done these types of things to bring certain opportunities into my life, and they have. And there's a little bit of a, you know, be careful what you ask for element. And just another thing to touch upon is magic, it travels on the route of, like, least resistance. So if you're asking for something in your life that is, like, totally, like, not in front of you opportunity-wise, and you don't have a plan for putting it in place opportunity-wise, and you do something, you know, if there's any kind of a fault line in your life, it's going to act on that to blow everything apart. Like if I said, well, I want a job like working as a park ranger for the Grand Canyon. We don't live anywhere near Arizona. And if I'm not, like, doing something to put that into place, you know, what kind of thing is going to have to happen? You know, is my husband going to get laid off? You know, something really crazy could happen. So you do want to put some consideration in there. It's why, you know, they say if you're going to do a job spell, make sure you are looking for a job. And, you know, it's another aspect of that is will. If magic is a power, is a function of the will, is your will really centered on that if you're not actually looking to pursue, you know, what you're asking for? And also, another thing that reminded me of, so now we've done our banishing spell, we've done our healing spell. Do we now say, you know, I'm protected, I have this armor that will steel me against, you know, getting this virus. I'm now going to go party on Daytona Beach with all my friends. No, you're not. You know, first of all, use some common sense. Second of all, you know, spells, magic, it's really about probability enhancement. And so there's not ever really a guarantee. But we know, we do believe it helps. Please do the smart thing. Stay away from people. If you are, you know, if you are a person that has to be around other people, if you work in the medical profession, or maybe you work at the grocery store and this is never what you signed on for, in which case I'm really sorry and thank you. You know, it's just some extra thing that you can do. So trying to think of any aspects I left out. Of course, I thoroughly cleansed my working space. You know, put the old Florida water for that. I personally prefer Florida water to sage, but it's just me. Trying to think of anything else. I'm sure if you have any questions, put them in the comment section. I'll be happy to answer them for you. I wish you luck. I wish you safety, good health, and good luck with any of the workings that you do. And we will sign off with our typical
A very blessed be.